Like many trends in the 1980s, the Transformers caught a nostalgia wave at the dawn of the new millennium. In particular, the property took off when a Canadian publisher called Dreamwave Productions put out a new comic book series in 2001.
The Transformers comics were so popular that within a few months, Dreamwave, which had a deal with Image Comics for distribution, was able to break away from said deal. Dreamwave's founder, Pat Lee, did artwork on the series that managed to rope in both new and old fans with its retro throwback style eerily reminiscent of the animated series.
And by 2005, it was all gone, mainly because Dreamwave founders Pat and Roger Lee had completely wasted funds that were supposed to go to creators on things like sports cars and a beauty pageant career for one of their wives. Anyway, Dreamwave pretty much ceased existence by 2005, just as the much-hyped live-action Transformers movie was going into pre-production. Thankfully, IDW Publishing stepped up to acquire the license and set about launching a new Transformers series, even doing a series bringing back longtime Marvel creator Simon Furman to pick up where his story left off.
IDW's Transformers books would be warmly received mainly because they actually paid the people who worked on them, and they would eventually run until 2012 where they would relaunch.
Unfortunately, the relaunch would blow up in IDW's face, as it was supposed to be part of a shared Hasbro comic book universe alongside the likes of G.I. Joe, Mask, and ROM Space Knight, which in turn would wind up leading to a Hasbro cinematic universe like the MCU.
It really did not work, and soon there would be need for another reboot in 2019. This story arc would actually take a new angle, revealing to fans the events that would lead to the Cybertronian Civil War and the events of the series eventually reaching Earth.
So, due to this kind of being a prequel series, this is going to lead to certain things having different names. For example, the Decepticons are called Ascenticons here, and I'll get into the differing philosophies a little bit later. And the fact that Orion Pax is the actual name of Optimus Prime. Prime is, of course, a title in the Transformers universe. That being said, I'm just going to keep calling him Optimus Prime because every time I tried to take notes for this thing, I kept calling him Optimus Prime, so make of that what you will. Anyway, let's take a look at this new Transformers universe that lasted until just this past year with Transformers, The World in Your Eyes.
Bumblebee and Rubble make their way towards an energy relay station where the Mentor helps his newly forged protege and help find a task in life. Along the way, they're joined by Windblade, who's responding to a distress call from the very same relay station, and the leader, Brainstorm. Upon arrival at the relay station, the trio find it in total disarray. Bumblebee and Windblade leave Rubble behind and attempt to locate Brainstorm. The youngster soon hears a noise which leads to a room containing Brainstorm's dead body. Prowl and Chromie are called in to investigate, and all are confused as a murder hasn't occurred in Cybertron in over a century. Though they question Rubble about actually what happened, they really know who's likely behind it. The Rise.
Basically, Cybertron runs on a three-party democracy, the three parties being the Autobots, the Ascenticons, and the Reversionists. The Autobots, who came to power after the initial Cybertronian Wars, have built an energy-efficient utopia basically by working for the betterment of all Cybertron and trying to keep to themselves mostly. They don't want to go out anywhere, they don't want to conquer, they're sort of isolationist in some ways. The Ascenticons are a little bit opposite than that. They want to colonize, they want to conquer, they want to hoard more for themselves, so that's where they're going. And the Reversionists are essentially a religious wing. Now, the Rise is a terrorist group that's popped up recently, and it consists mainly of those who were exiled by Nominus Prime, the Autobot leader, who took control when the Autobots came to power.
Bumblebee and Rubble are allowed to leave to go work with Wheeljack collecting Energon at the Tergamax station. After a long, hard day of work, Bumblebee promises to take Rubble to the moon someday. The comfort is short-lived, though, as Bumblebee is summoned back to the capital city of Tarn, where Megatron was delivering a speech at a political rally when someone out of nowhere attacked him.
I know what you're thinking. Starscream is off-planet on a diplomatic mission, and he won't be appearing until much later in the story.
Suffice to say, Megatron is no longer pleased with Autobot security and has now assembled his own Guardian Force, the Ascenticon Guard. The team consists of Soundwave, Alito-1, Skytread, Refractor, and Quake. The last of which has really upset the Autobots as he was dismissed from their security force due to his anger management problems. However, Optimus Prime is more interested in investigating Brainstorm's murder. To that end, he contacts Bumblebee to start looking into something, leaving Rubble in Windblade's care. Rubble is disappointed, but Windblade assures him that it's not that Bumblebee is disappointed in Rubble. It's just that Optimus must have something really important to call Bumblebee in on something like this.
Windblade is kind of a unique character, as she was introduced thanks to a series of fan votes on the Hasbro website and then introduced in the comics. She's usually portrayed as being a nurturing, trusting character who's sometimes a little naive, even once offering to share a planet with Starscream.
After returning Rubble to his quarters, Windblade returns with Chromia to the site of Brainstorm's murder. Upon returning, they spook Cyclonus, who attempts to make a break for it, only to be caught. The fact of the matter is, Cyclonus has completely isolated himself from the rest of Cybertron and entirely focused himself on a memorial to his fellow soldiers who have died in battle. He didn't know anything about Brainstorm and was only looking into a pest infestation that was draining power away from the memorial. The two Autobot security members tell Cyclonus to report back to their headquarters within a day and leave. Back in town, Bumblebee and Rubble take in a forging celebration for RC and her newest underling when Prowl stops by. He's looking for a creature called a Void, which subsists on energon waste that he believes may have something to do with Brainstorm. Rubble does point out they spotted a bunch of Void in the downtown section of Tarn. However, the creatures are just totally ubiquitous, so it's possible that it's not that Void that he's looking for. Bumblebee and Rubble head back to their quarters to allow the former to prepare for Brainstorm's memorial service. Even the memorial can't escape the political groundswell going on as Optimus Prime and Megatron debate over the rise, as the Autobots suspect that it's the constant Ascenticon rallies being held that are the cause of these attacks. Megatron just slowly storms off in a huff.
This series takes the viewpoint that in their younger days, Optimus Prime and Megatron were once very close friends, even though they came from different backgrounds, Optimus having the more affluent upbringing of the Autobots, and Megatron coming from some sort of slum or having to fight his way up from the bottom. It's not entirely explained. However, their ideology slowly began to clash as Optimus began working more with the Autobot leaders, Optimus Prime and Cadexia, while Megatron came under the thrall of the Ascenticon leader, Termagax.
After another long day working with Wheeljack, Bumblebee is forced to leave Rubble again, forcing the youngster to have to head back home alone. Rubble makes his way through the rougher parts of Tarn, where he spots another group of Void eerily similar to those he encountered back at the substation, and goes off to inquire about their whereabouts. Meanwhile, Bumblebee heads down into an Energine mine to find Soundwave waiting for him. It's strange, as Bumblebee was supposed to be meeting with Alita 1 about the Ascenticon Guard, but Soundwave has put the kibosh on it as Bumblebee is too close to Optimus Prime to be properly trusted. Back with Rubble, he tries to contact Bumblebee about the Void, but can't seem to get his communicator through. However, he does manage to locate Prowl when it's then that he hears a loud cronk.
I guess the Simpsons lived on Cybertron the entire time.
Rubble spots Quake killing the Void and gets mistaken for a spy. He desperately tries to get away and contact either Bumblebee or Prowl, but he can only get through to the latter and barely explain what happened before the transmission suddenly cuts off because Quake has killed the youngster. Word of Rubble's death reaches Bumblebee, and it falls to Windblade to comfort him and point out that it wasn't his fault. He's not the only one, as Prowl is also playing the blame game. Unfortunately, the autopsy is unable to turn up any similarities with Brainstorm's killing, meaning that there's possibly no way these two are connected. Optimus Prime tries to comfort Bumblebee to no effect, and what isn't helping is the news that an upset Sentinel Prime is returning from his diplomatic mission.
Yes, this is in fact the same diplomatic mission that Starscream is on alongside another Autobot named Nautica. Now, this mission is getting delayed because it turns out one of the diplomats who's coming back with them decided to try to blow the ship up because apparently no one in this series understands what the term diplomat means.
Feeling he has no other choice, Bumblebee meets with Alita 1 and asks to join the Ascenticon Guard. Rubble's death has made it clear that the Autobot way isn't working and things need to change. To prove his worth, Bumblebee floors Skytrider with one punch, and as he's conditionally accepted, he notices that Quake has mysteriously disappeared. Meanwhile, at the Cybertron War Memorial crater, Cyclonus is dealing with the voices in his head who counsel him and understand, when he notices a cable sticking up from the ground. Pulling on the cable brings out a gun-wielding individual named Flamor, who blasts Cyclonus as he tries to flee. The two begin fighting, and Cyclonus gains the upper hand until another gunman named Shadow Striker knocks him out.
Cyclonus is a veteran of the original Cybertronian War who is quite literally being haunted by the ghosts of his comrades who fell in battle. This has turned him into a total recluse who only wishes to just maintain the memorial crater.
Megatron pays a visit to Turgamax to implore the Ascenticon leader to speak her viewpoint and hopefully ease some of the tension while also dissuading the Rise from further attacks. She points out that that's not necessary as there are fine people on both sides. However, Megatron storms off, leaves a message with Soundwave to not bother him during a meeting. Cyclonus crashes into the security headquarters to explain what happened and get repaired so he can go back and fight. The security team has already flagged Shadow Striker as possible member of the Rise and prepares to ditch that barricade to inform Optimus Prime, not knowing that he just left the Force in order to join the Ascenticon Guard. A team of Windblade, Sideswipe, and Chromia is sent out to investigate the memorial crater and see exactly what's happening in the area. Shortly after arrival, Sideswipe turns out a large cache of weapons, the problem being is that no one knows if the Rise are still squatting here or they've moved out. Meanwhile, Prowl begins hitting up an old informant named Headlock who points out that he's already explained everything he knows to Barricade. It turns out that members of the Rise, including Flame Warp, Sidestriker, and Sixshot, are still monitoring the area, and Sixshot is not happy about out of this as he threatens to report to the commander before leaving to take down the Autobots on his own. Back at the Ascenticon Guard, Bumblebee's suspicions are aroused as Barricade is accepted with open arms. The team at the Memorial Crater get jumped as Sixshot manages to separate Chromia from Windblade. Meanwhile, Flame War manages to take on Sideswipe. Sixshot appears to gain the upper hand with Chromia, only for Windblade to run him through with, well, a blade. The Rise scatter, triggering a self-destruct mechanism in the process, and the resulting explosion throws the Autobots completely away.
In this case, though, everyone's actually still alive.
Bumblebee and Alita are assigned guard duty for Megatron, with the Ascenticon leader showing compassion for Rubble while witnessing a silent march in the youngster's honor. Megatron then prepares to address the Senate during the preparation for Sentinel Prime's return. He takes Optimus Prime to task for constantly saying that everyone's in agreement, because just saying that doesn't necessarily make it so. Optimus points out that the Rise always seems to attack right after Megatron makes some type of grand speech, and he implores Megatron to condemn the public attacks. Also, he should disband the Guard and try the peace for betterment of everyone. Megatron elects to just leave the meeting, and he winds up walking right out into the middle of the protest march. The Senator then begins getting attacked by the protesters, and Bumblebee freezes when trying to attack the protesters. He instead decides to aid Megatron by simply pulling him to safety, but this doesn't exactly endear him to the rest of the group. When things die down, Megatron slips out of the city and proceeds to a secret meeting with Shockwave, the leader of the Rise.
I'm sure you're just all as shocked as I am to find out that Megatron is actually one of the bad guys. Though he only intended for the Rise's attacks to sow doubt in the Autobot leadership, he didn't think they would actually go so far as to kill people even though they're terrorists. I mean, that's just too far, you know?
Shockwave points out the two are partners, and this is not an employer-employee relationship, and you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. That last metaphor is completely meaningless to Megatron since he doesn't eat breakfast. Megatron leaves with a warning for Shockwave to tone things down or force more dire consequences. As this plays out, the diplomatic envoy led by Sentinel Prime touches down on Cybertron. The Autobot leader is not pleased, especially since the Ascenticon Guard won't allow Barricade to be interrogated about what Headlock told him. This leaves Optimus Prime to try his inside source, Bumblebee.
Yes, it turns out that Bumblebee has been a double agent this entire time as he was tasked with this mission before Rubble's death. However, it seems the death of the Autobots' protege has made him a tiny bit more sympathetic to the Ascenticon cause.
Meanwhile, Megatron is also upset about the situation, in particular the fact that Barricade's information was passed on to Shockwave, who then dispatched Quake to take care of the Void, and by extension Rubble. This is now beyond the point of no return, meaning that if they fail, the Ascenticons are all Dunyan rings.
And in a scant 70 million years, they will be.
As Megatron prepares to make another speech, Soundwave dispatches the entire Ascenticon Guard, save for Barricade, to do guard duty. However, the fact that Barricade is being held back can't help but arouse Bumblebee's suspicions. He slinks away from his post and spots Skytread directing Sixshot, Visper, and Cloud to stage an attack on Megatron and abduct Barricade. Bumblebee puts up a fight, but the numbers game soon catches up with him. Knowing that his plan has been accelerated, Megatron decides that the time has come for the Ascenticons to adapt a more virulent philosophy, a new strategy, and a new logo.
And that concludes our look at Transformers Volume 1, The World in Your Eyes. How was it? Well, on the plus side, I really do like the artwork in this. I think it does a great job of capturing that old-school Transformers feel, but also adds to it. I think the robots do a really good job of displaying emotion, something they've never really been able to do in either the animated series or the comics or the movies. So, yeah, they seem to actually do a good job of conveying all of that. And I do really like the back-to-basics approach, showing things from a square one perspective, how this all started. I like the fact that Megatron at times feels like one of the good guys who just kind of lost his way. Unfortunately, that's kind of where the praise ends. This series has really bad pacing. There's a lot of characters walking through deserts, and that's just it. Also, Rubble is not interesting at all. This is a character who seemed like he was created strictly to die, as he spends most of his time looking around just kind of starry-eyed. Oh, wow, look at that. That's cool. And he has no depth to him at all. So yeah, he just feels kind of like cannon fodder. And of course, famously, as I said in my last Transformers video, IDW no longer holds the license to these. Basically, at the end of 2022, this will revert to, I believe it's Robert Kirkman's publishing imprint of Image called Skybound. So I have no idea what's going to happen to this series. I mean, the series is over, but for the all intents and purposes, I don't know if it, I don't know how available the reprints are going to be, is what I'm trying to say there. Sorry. And so, again, availability has to come into this. Like, if you're watching this now, you might be able to find them. You might even be able to find them cheap because IDW will be blowing out their stock. But other than that, yeah, it's just not, it might not be readily available if you're watching this in 2026. So, yeah, that's just going to have to hold it back a little bit in my book. I'm going to have to give Transformers Volume 1, The World in Your Eyes, a C. Like I said, it's not terrible. There's some enjoyable bits, but there's a lot of kind of dead moments in it that just kind of break up the pacing. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Hey guys, remember you can help support the channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. And as always, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.